I've been a fire lookout for 14 years, most of it on the same peak, in the same little glass cab, in a stretch of national forest in western Montana I'm not going to name. High country, lodgepole and fir on the slopes, a lot of old burn up top grade dead snags standing in rows. My tower sits just under 8,000 feet. On a clear day, I can see 3 drainages and most of 2 ranger districts. And when somebody goes missing out there, which is more often than people think, the lookout is usually the first link in the chain. I've got the high ground and the radio. I help run the search. In 14 years, I've done dozens of them. Lost hikers, hunters turned around in the weather. A couple of lost kids, which are the ones that stay with you. But there's one place in my district we don't search. The Black Vein Caves. I worked there 9 years before I understood why, and the summer I finally found out, there was an 11-year-old boy on that mountain, and the clock was running. So that's where I'll start. His name was Diego Reyes, 11 years old. His family was camping at a developed site down in the main drainage, and he wandered off the way kids do, went to look at something, lost the trail, and the country swallowed him. We got the call a little before 5 in the evening. By dark, we had a real operation going. I ran communications from the tower that first night, and I'll tell you, it started as a good search. Strong turnout, clear weather, which is a gift, because weather is what kills lost people out there. Not much else. We had a tight last seen time. The terrain in his likely direction of travel was open and walkable. We should have found him fast. Late that first night, a ground team cutting for sign found his trail. Small tread, a kid's hiking shoe, clear in the soft dirt. But it was heading the wrong way, not down toward the water and the road, the way lost kids almost always drift. Uphill, toward the steep country and the higher rock. That's the first thing that didn't sit right. Lost children go downhill. They follow gravity, they follow water. They don't climb. Diego was climbing. By the end of the first full day, we hadn't found him, and the search widened, pushing uphill along his trail into the rougher country. And by the second afternoon, the grids were creeping up the main drainage toward the higher rock, toward the Black Vein. I sat in that tower watching the map, watching the teams move, and I watched the whole operation come right up to the edge of those caves and stop. Nobody said a word about it on the radio. The grids just ended. There was this invisible line, and the teams worked up to it and not past it. And the incident commander pulled everybody back down to recover ground we'd already done once. We searched the easy country twice while a whole quadrant of that mountain, the exact direction the boy's own tracks were pointing, sat untouched. I keyed up and asked the IC, plane, why we weren't putting anybody into the Black Vein. There was a pause on the channel. Then he said, "We don't search the Black Vein. You know that." And the thing is, I did know that. I'd known it 9 years. I just realized, with a kid's footprints pointing straight at it, that I had no idea why. So that night, while the search was still running, I started trying to find out. A lookout's not much use in the dark, and the teams were down for a few hours' rest. I couldn't sleep anyway, you don't, with a child out there, so I went to the district office and got into the files. I told myself it was practical. If there was a reason we weren't searching a whole section of mountain, I wanted to know what it was, because right then, it might cost that boy his life. Here's the first thing that didn't add up. The Forest Service documents everything. Every closure, every hazard area, every do not enter gets a paper trail. A memo, a justification, a signature, a date. If a place is too dangerous to search, there's a document that says so, and says why. There was no document for the Black Vein. I went through the hazard files, the closure orders, anything. Nothing. According to every official record in that office, those caves were open ground. Searchable. There was no rule, but everybody followed it anyway, the way you just know not to bring up a man's dead wife. I'd asked my old supervisor about it once, years back. He thought a long time, longer than the question needed, and all he said was, "It's always been the rule." And he changed the subject in a way that told me the changing of the subject was the answer. So that was my first real question. Not why is it dangerous? Plenty of places are dangerous, and they're all on paper. Why is this the one rule in the whole district nobody will write down? And there was a boy out there. So I kept looking. By morning, day 2, the search gave me my next development, and it wasn't from the files. It was a witness. One of the other campers, a woman 2 sites down, finally got interviewed properly, and she said something the first responders hadn't flagged. She said the afternoon Diego went missing, she'd seen him up at the tree line at the edge of the campground loop. And she said he wasn't alone. She said he looked like he was talking to somebody up the trail, in the trees. An adult, she thought. She couldn't describe them. She assumed it was his father, or another camper, and went back to her cooler. There was no other camper up that trail. His father was at the site the whole time. Whoever Diego was talking to, nobody else ever saw, and nobody ever came forward. That changed the tone of the whole operation. Now, we weren't just looking for a kid who got lost. We had a child who'd been seen talking to someone unknown, and then walked uphill, away from safety, toward the one place we wouldn't go. That's when I went back to the old incident reports. The district had decades of paper SAR files boxed in the back, going to the 60s, and because I was looking for anything about the caves, I read the old cases. The Black Vein came up constantly, which surprised me, since we don't go near it now. But these were old, from before the rule, or when it was newer, and the language in them was wrong. These were professionals. They wrote flat and factual, but the facts they calmly wrote down were impossible. A field note from 1971. Called subject's name at cave entrance. Heard response from inside, male, faint. Entered approximately 40 feet. No subject found. Response did not repeat. Believe acoustic echo. One from 1984. Different searcher. 13 years later. 2 team members reported hearing their own names called from within the formation, attributed to wind and fatigue. And then a line he added himself. Note for the record. Subjects had not yet been told the missing climbers' names. Read that twice. The searchers heard their own names called, not the lost climbers, their own. And the man was honest enough to point out they couldn't have been hearing the missing people because nobody on the team even knew those names yet. He wrote it down because it bothered him. Then he blamed the wind, because what else do you do? A dozen of these across 50 years. Always the same. Somebody hears a voice from inside the rock, and every time they go in toward it, there's nobody there. And one of those old reports from 1990 stopped me because of what was happening on my mountain right then. A teenage girl, missing. Her dog came back without her, and the dog was found sitting at the edge of one of the big fissures, refusing to go in, wouldn't cross. The searchers couldn't drag it past the line. I was reading that in the dark, on the night of day 2. and at first light on day 3, the radio woke me up, and it was a dog team down in the upper drainage. They had a strong hit. The dog had run a scent line hard and fast, straight uphill, and then locked up, planted, refused to go another foot. The handler called in his position so we could mark it on the map. He was standing at the edge of the black vein. The dog would not cross the line. Same as 1990, 33 years apart. The same animal refusal, at the same rock. And I was the only person on that whole operation who'd read the old report and knew it had happened before. A couple hours later, day 3, the search handed us the first hard physical evidence. A ground team working that upper edge, right where the dog quit, found Diego's water bottle. Then his jacket, a kid's blue windbreaker, snagged on the brush maybe 40 feet from the mouth of the largest fissure, 40 feet from the entrance. Right at the line, we don't cross. And here's what the IC did, and I want you to understand, it isn't because he's a coward, because he's not. He marked the jacket location, photographed it, collected it, and he held the teams at the line. He did not send anyone in after an 11-year-old's jacket lying at the mouth of a cave. The rule held, even then, even there. That's how strong the rule is. A child's coat at the entrance, and grown men who do this for a living stood at the edge and would not step inside. I watched it on the map, and I went back to the office because by then I needed to know what they all knew that I didn't. I found the tapes. The district kept old cassettes radio traffic recorded off the base station during major searches. I pulled the black vein cases and put on headphones in the middle of the night. Most of it's procedural. Call signs. Copy, moving to grid 4. Hours of it. And then on a tape from a 1978 search, a hunter, never found under one of the transmissions. Faint, like it came in from a long way off on the same channel. There's a man's voice, calm, unhurried. It says, "He's already down here. You can stop looking." I rewound it 30 times, not garbled, not noise I'm turning into words. A clear sentence, calm, and it matches nobody on that search. And the searchers don't react to it. Like they couldn't even hear what the recorder caught. A stray transmission, somebody bleeding over from another frequency. That happens. I'm a radio guy. I know the ways a strange voice gets onto a channel. So I told myself that's what it was. Then I found the same voice on a tape from 1991. Different search. 13 years later, different equipment. And there it is again. Low under the traffic, the same calm man, same flat delivery. This time it says, "You brought the dogs won't come in." There were dogs on the 1991 search. They refused the cave, same as 1990, same as the dog standing out there on my mountain that very morning. I am not a dramatic man. I've spent my whole adult life alone on a peak. That's not a person who scares easy. But I sat in that office and felt the hair come up on my arms. The same voice, 13 years apart, on 2 recording systems, saying things that fit each search, exactly things that voice had no way of knowing. A story can't do that. A superstition can't record itself onto tape in 1978 and again in 1991, in the same voice. Something was on those tapes, and it had been there a long time. I should have stopped, but there was a boy whose jacket was lying at the mouth of that cave, so I kept going. I went into the equipment logs. The service tracks its gear radios, ropes, litters, asset numbers, a paper history, and there were write-offs going back decades, equipment lost in the field and never recovered. Normal enough. But the locations clustered. far more than chance. All last recorded at or inside the Black Vein. And there was one report from the one time somebody went in to bring some of it back. 1996. Not a search, a recovery. 2 rope techs went after a litter left the year before. 2 pages, mostly dry. But at the bottom, the lead tech logged what they actually found down there. The litter they came for, yes, but also older gear. A canvas and wood pack frame the agency hadn't issued since the 50s. A carbide lamp. A coil of natural fiber rope gone stiff and black. A radio handset he did not recognize and believe predates my service. Gear from the 50s, the 70s, all together, deep inside, well past where any search had reached, and, his word, arranged. Set along the back wall, not dropped, lined up. They brought out the litter and nothing else. And he wrote one last line, and the report ends. Recommend no further recovery operations. The gear should stay where it is. No explanation, just that. And notice that didn't answer anything. It made it bigger. Then it was the dates that broke it wide open. The most ordinary thing in the world, dates that didn't line up. I had names by now, everyone connected to the Black Vein, and I cross-checked them against other records. And I kept hitting timelines no clerk would ever let stand. People kept being reported missing after they were already gone. A hunter logged as a missing person in a report dated 1989. But the same man, same date of birth, same description, same home county, had been declared legally dead in 1974, 15 years earlier, and he wasn't the only one. 4 of them, people who disappeared, were searched for, were declared dead, and then, years later, generated brand new missing person activity. A fresh report, a sighting near the caves. In one case, a call to the sheriff from someone giving the name of a man gone 20 years, saying he was hurt and needed help in the Black Rock. People kept going missing who were already missing. The same people, over and over. Like that country could never quite finish losing them. And that's when the rule made sense. It was never about safety. It was containment. A long time ago, somebody figured out you do not go in there, and you do not write it down, because writing it down makes it something the agency has to explain, and there is no explanation. So it became the thing you pass mouth to mouth, year to year. We don't search the Black Vein, carried by people who didn't know why, and were better off not knowing. I knew why now, or close enough. And out the window it was the 3rd night, day 3, rolling into day 4, and Diego Reyes was still out there, and a weather front was building to the west that was going to shut us down. That's the night I heard the boy on the radio. I want to be precise. It came in on the forest net, faint the way a signal comes from down in a hole, where there shouldn't be any signal at all. A child's voice, scared, tired, the exact way a real lost kid sounds, and I've heard real ones, and you do not forget it. It said, "I'm in the dark. I can hear you. Please come get me." I keyed up and asked him to say his name. A pause, the kind where you can hear someone breathing, and the voice that answered me was not the boy's. It was calm, unhurried, a man telling you the weather. The same voice off the 78 tape and the 91 tape, and it said, "He's already down here. You can stop looking." Word for word, the exact words from 1978. I should have logged it and let it go. Instead, at first light, day 4, with that front coming and everyone knowing the search had maybe a day left in it, I told the IC I wanted to walk a section of the upper drainage myself, alone, to clear it off the map. He didn't love it. But I'm senior. I know that ground. And I made it sound routine. And I went into the Black Vein Caves. I'm not going to dress it up. It's mostly just dark and cold and close. The worst part isn't anything you see. It's the quiet. That rock eats sound the way it eats a radio signal. No wind, no birds. And after a while, that silence stops feeling empty and starts feeling like attention, like the place has gone still to listen to you, the same way you're listening to it. I didn't go far, maybe a couple 100 feet down the main passage. Good light, a rope, every intention of turning right back around. Then the passage opened into a chamber, and my light fell on the gear. It was all there, just like the 1996 report, the old pack frame, the carbide lamp, the stiff black rope. The radio nobody recognized, and more than the report listed newer things too. A litter, modern carabiners, decades of equipment set out along the back wall, not scattered, spaced, lined up, an inventory somebody was keeping, and at the end of the row, set apart from the older things, there was a small blue day pack, new, clean, the kind a kid wears to school. I knew it before I picked it up. I'd seen the photo on the briefing board for 3 days. It was Diego's, the pack he'd had on when he walked away from that campground, except his jacket and his water bottle had been found at the mouth of the cave, 40 feet from daylight. And his pack was here, hundreds of feet in the dark, in a chamber no search had reached, set out neat and square at the end of a row of gear that had been collected over 50 years, placed there. The way you'd add a new piece to a collection, a boy who'd been seen alive 3 days earlier, whose pack was already arranged in the dark alongside equipment from before I was born, and next to it, set apart from everything else, there was a notebook. It was a Forest Service field book, green cover, the kind we all carry, the kind I had in my own pocket right then. It was old, cover faded soft, corners worn round. I opened it, and the pages were full of handwriting, water-stained, but readable. Weather, times, compass bearings, and it was my handwriting. I know my own hand, the slant of it, the way I cross my sevens. A little shorthand for bearings. I made up myself my first season, because the regular way annoyed me. It was mine, page after page. But I'd never seen that notebook before in my life. And the dates at the top of those entries, careful, in my hand, in my shorthand, were from 1986. I started on that mountain in 2009. In 1986, I was a teenager, 2,000 miles away, in another state. I'd never set foot in Montana. I wouldn't see that forest for 23 more years. And there were my field notes, in my handwriting, from a year I was a kid. I turned the pages with my hands not quite working right. Most of it was ordinary lookout logging, until near the back, one entry, dated that summer of 1986, where my handwriting stops logging weather and just says plain, boy from the campground. Reyes. Came up the trail, talking. He's down here now. You can stop looking. The boy's name, the Reyes boy, written in my own hand, in a notebook worn soft by 40 years in that cold, decades before Diego Reyes was ever born. I put the notebook back. I want you to know that. I put it back exactly where it was, next to the boy's pack, and I turned around and walked out. And I did not run, because some animal part of me knew that running was the wrong thing to do in front of something that patient. I came out into the daylight and the sound of the world came back. The second I cleared the rock, my radio crackled and the IC asked my position. I told him the upper drainage was clear. I lied to my incident commander. I told him there was nothing up there. That afternoon the front came in, wind, then rain. The search was suspended that evening day for pending weather, and I went up to my tower, and I sat in the dark, and I was as certain as I've ever been of anything that we'd lost that boy, and that I'd seen where he'd gone, and that it had had his name written down before he was born. 2 days later, Diego Reyes walked out of the woods alive. A road crew found him, day 6, 11 miles from the campground, sitting on the shoulder of a forest road on the far side of the ridge aside of the mountain the search had never even reached. Country he had no business being in, and no way to have crossed on foot in his condition. He was thin and cold and a little dehydrated. But he was fine. No injury, no frostbite. After 6 nights out in that country, he didn't have a scratch on him. People called it a miracle. The family wept. The papers ran the photo, and I should have been on my knees grateful, and part of me was. But I'd held that boy's pack in my hands, hundreds of feet down in the dark, 2 days before they found him on the wrong side of the mountain. When they debriefed him, gentle, the way you do with a kid, they asked him how he survived, where he sheltered, what he ate. And Diego, calmer than any 11-year-old should be after that, said a man had looked after him, a man in the dark. He said the man kept him warm and told him stories and showed him the way out when it was time. They asked who the man was. Diego said he didn't know his name, but he said the man knew us, knew the search, knew the lookout up on the tower. And then Diego said the man had given him a message to give to the lookout. To me. The responder who took it down thought it was just a confused kid, and he wrote it in his notes, and nobody made anything of it. The message was, tell him his notes are safe. Tell him we'll keep his place ready. That was 3 summers ago. I finished the season, and I've worked 3 more since, and I've never told a soul any of this until now. I never went back in. I never told anyone about the pack, or the notebook, or what the boy's message meant. When the new people ask about the black vein, I tell them what I was told. It's always been the rule. And I changed the subject, and now I understand why the old man did. But here's the part I can't put down, the part that's worse than all of it. Last winter, I dug out my oldest field book, my notes from my first season, 2009, to settle a question about a fire scar, and the handwriting in it matches the handwriting in the notebook in the cave. Of course it does. It's mine. But the notebook in the cave was old when I found it. Soft corners, water-stained, faded the way paper fades over decades. My 2009 book still looks new. That notebook down in the dark, dated 1986, in my hand, with Diego Reyes's name in it. The wear on it is real. That paper sat in that cold for 40 years, which means the writing came first. The boy came up the trail, talking to someone nobody else could see. He walked uphill toward the rock, the wrong way, like he was going somewhere he was expected. His pack was already in the collection before the search ended, and his name was already in my notes, in my hand, from a year I was a child who'd never heard of Montana. The record didn't follow the boy. The boy followed the record, and it gave him back. That's the part I can't get past. The others, the ones in the old reports, it kept them. Diego, it returned, unharmed, calm, with a message for me, like he wasn't who it wanted, like he was just sent up that trail to deliver something and then sent home. I don't know what's in the Black Vein Caves. I told you at the start I couldn't answer that, and I can't. I never saw anything down there. I only heard a calm voice and read my own handwriting and held a boy's empty pack. What I can't stop turning over the thing bigger than every other question, the reason I don't sleep right anymore, is the message that boy carried out of the dark for me. We'll keep his place ready, because if my notes from 1986 are already down there, finished, worn soft, waiting, then somewhere in that book is an entry for the last day I work that mountain. It's already written in my hand. And the boy was right. They're keeping my place ready. I just don't know what day it's written for.